Her hands trembled as she arranged the lilies, each petal a silent scream of grief she couldn't voice. At the edge of the cemetery under a gray Oregon sky, Clara stood alone, her florist's apron stained with dirt and tears. They thought she was just the florist, but she was burying her heart today. Clara, 38, had spent the morning weaving roses and chrysanthemums into a wreath for Emily's funeral. Emily, her Emily, gone at 39, taken by a cruel illness that had eaten away her strength but never her spirit. For 12 years they had lived a quiet love in Portland, hidden from the world, not out of shame, but because their love was too sacred to be dissected by judgment. Clara's fingers brushed the petals, her mind replaying the night Emily proposed, whispering, "We don't need their approval, just each other." Now Emily was gone, and Clara stood among strangers who didn't know she was the widow. The funeral was small, held in a modest churchyard on the outskirts of town. Emily's family, conservative and distant, had organized it with clinical precision. Clara had overheard them at the florist's shop, dismissing her as the flower girl, when she offered to handle the arrangements for free. They didn't know she'd spent every night for months at Emily's bedside, holding her hand, singing softly to ease her pain. They didn't know about the secret vows they'd exchanged in a forest clearing, rings hidden under shirts, or the life they'd built in a cozy apartment filled with books and laughter. As mourners gathered, Clara kept her distance, her short brown hair tucked under a cap, her hazel eyes scanning the crowd. Emily's sister, Margaret, stood at the front, her face a mask of stoic grief. Margaret had never liked Clara, always saw her as an eccentric friend who lingered too long at family gatherings. Clara's chest tightened as she overheard Margaret murmur to a cousin, "At least Emily didn't leave anyone behind." The words cut deeper than Clara expected, a reminder of the invisibility she'd chosen for love's sake. She moved to the edge of the grave, pretending to adjust the flowers. Her hands shook as she placed a single white rose, Emily's favorite, on the casket. The rose was her private goodbye, a symbol of the love no one here would understand. She wanted to scream, to tell them all she was Emily's wife, that she'd loved her fiercely through every storm. But she stayed silent, honoring Emily's wish. "Let them have their peace, Clara. Our love doesn't need their validation." A young woman approached, maybe 25, with Emily's sharp cheekbones and soft gray eyes. It was Sophie, Emily's niece, the only family member who'd ever warmed to Clara. Sophie paused, her gaze lingering on the rose. "You loved her, didn't you?" she whispered, so quietly Clara almost missed it. Her heart lurched. Someone saw her. Someone knew. Clara nodded, unable to speak, her throat choked with unshed tears. Sophie reached out, squeezing her hand. "She talked about you," Sophie said. "Not by name, but I knew. She'd light up when she mentioned her best friend." "I'm so sorry." The kindness broke something in Clara. She wanted to collapse into Sophie's arms, to sob and tell her everything, about the late-night dances in their kitchen, the way Emily laughed at Clara's terrible puns, the promise they'd made to grow old together. But she couldn't. Not here, not now. She managed a weak smile. "Thank you," she whispered. As Sophie walked away, Clara's gaze drifted to the crowd. Emily's parents stood stiffly, their faces unreadable. A few co-workers from Emily's law firm murmured condolences, oblivious to the woman in the apron who'd been Emily's everything. Clara's eyes caught on a man in a gray suit, lingering at the back. He was out of place, his sharp eyes scanning the mourners like he was searching for something, or someone. Clara's stomach twisted. She didn't know him, but his presence felt wrong, like a shadow over the day. She turned back to the casket, her fingers brushing the rose again. "I'll find a way to honor you," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "I promise." But as she spoke, she felt the weight of eyes on her. Not Sophie's, not Margaret's, but the man in the gray suit. He was watching her, and she didn't know why. Clara straightened, wiping her tears. She wasn't just the florist. She was Emily's wife, and she'd carry that truth, even if it meant carrying it alone. But something told her this wasn't the end of their story. The man in the gray suit, Sophie's knowing glance, the weight of secrets unspoken. It all felt like the beginning of something bigger, something that would unravel the life she and Emily had so carefully hidden. The rain started as the funeral ended, a soft drizzle that blurred the edges of Clara's grief. She lingered by the grave, watching mourners drift away, their umbrellas blooming like dark flowers. The man in the gray suit was gone, but his presence gnawed at her, a splinter she couldn't pull out. Back at her florist shop, petals and promises, Clara locked the door and sank into a chair. The shop was her sanctuary, filled with the scent of roses and the hum of a life she'd built with Emily. On the counter sat a photo of them from years ago. Clara laughing, Emily's arms around her, their faces glowing in the light of a summer fair. Clara traced Emily's smile, her chest aching. How could she move forward when every petal, every stem, reminded her of the woman she'd lost? Her phone buzzed, snapping her out of her thoughts. A text from Sophie. "Can we talk? I know more than you think." Clara's pulse quickened. She typed a quick reply inviting Sophie to the shop. If Sophie knew something, Clara needed to hear it. She needed any piece of Emily she could hold on to. Sophie arrived an hour later, her rain-soaked coat dripping on the hardwood floor. She was nervous, her fingers twisting a silver bracelet Emily had given her years ago. "I didn't know how to say this at the funeral," Sophie began, her voice low. "But Aunt Emily left something for you. A letter. She gave it to me a month ago, said you'd know what it meant." Clara's breath caught. A letter? Emily had always been private, even with her. They'd shared everything, but Emily had a way of guarding certain thoughts, like treasures she wasn't ready to unearth. Sophie pulled an envelope from her bag, sealed with wax, Emily's handwriting scrawled across the front. "For Clara, my home." Clara's hand shook as she opened it. Emily's words spilled out, vivid and alive. "My love, if you're reading this, I'm gone. I'm sorry I left you to carry this alone. For 12 years you were my everything, my wife, my heart, my safe place. I kept us secret to protect you, but I was wrong to think silence was strength. There's something you need to know, something I couldn't tell you while I was alive. In our apartment, under the floorboard by the window, there's a box. It's yours now. It holds the truth about us and about me. Be careful, Clara. Not everyone will want it found." Clara's vision blurred with tears. A box? A secret? Emily had always been open with her, or so she thought. What could she have hidden? And why the warning? She looked at Sophie, who was watching her closely. "Did she tell you what's in it?" Clara asked. Sophie shook her head. "She just said it was important. And she mentioned someone watching her. She was scared, Clara. I didn't push her for details, but she wasn't herself near the end." The man in the gray suit flashed in Clara's mind. She didn't want to alarm Sophie, but the pieces were starting to form a picture she didn't like. "Thank you for this," she said, clutching the letter. "I'll figure it out." After Sophie left, Clara drove to their apartment, a small loft overlooking the Willamette River. The space felt hollow without Emily's laughter, her books scattered on every surface. Clara knelt by the window, her fingers prying at the floorboard. It came up easily, revealing a metal box no bigger than a book. Inside was a journal, a stack of letters, and a USB drive. Her heart pounded as she opened the journal, Emily's neat script filling the pages. The first entry was dated a year before they met. Emily wrote about her work as a lawyer, defending a whistleblower in a corporate fraud case. The case had been high profile, involving a pharmaceutical company accused of hiding dangerous side effects. Emily had won, but the entries grew darker, mentioning threats, strange calls, and a man following her. Clara's stomach churned. Emily had never told her about this. She'd always said her work was just paperwork, brushing off Clara's questions with a smile. The last entry, written weeks before Emily's death, was chilling. "They're still out there. I thought it was over, but they know about Clara. If anything happens to me, she needs to know the truth. The USB has everything." Clara plugged the USB into her laptop, her hands trembling. A single video file loaded. Emily's face appeared, pale but determined, her voice steady. "Clara, if you're watching this, I'm so sorry. The case I worked on, it never ended. They covered it up, but I kept evidence. It's all here, documents, recordings, proof they knew the drug was killing people. They'll come for this. Keep it safe. I love you." The video ended and Clara sat frozen. Emily hadn't just been her wife. She'd been a warrior, carrying a secret that could destroy powerful people. And now, Clara was holding that secret. The man in the gray suit, was he one of them? Was he watching her now? She hid the box and journal, her mind racing. She wasn't just grieving anymore. She was angry. Emily had fought for justice, and Clara wouldn't let her fight die. But first she needed to know who was watching, and what they wanted. Clara didn't sleep that night. The USB drive burned a hole in her pocket, its weight heavier than the grief she carried. Emily's video played on a loop in her mind. They'll come for this. Who were they? And how far would they go to keep Emily's evidence buried? By morning, Clara's small apartment felt like a cage. She paced, the journal open on the table, its pages a map of Emily's hidden life. The entries detailed late-night meetings, cryptic emails, and a growing paranoia that someone was closing in. Emily had been meticulous, noting license plates, dates, even sketches of a man who matched the gray-suited stranger at the funeral. Clara's gut told her he wasn't a mourner. He was a hunter. She needed help, but who could she trust? Emily's family was out of the question. Margaret would dismiss her as hysterical, and Emily's parents barely acknowledged her existence. Sophie was a possibility, but Clara couldn't drag a 25-year-old into this. She thought of Rachel, a friend from her college days who now worked as a private investigator in Seattle. Rachel was sharp, discreet, and owed Clara a favor from years ago. It was a start. Clara called Rachel, her voice low as she explained the funeral, the letter, the USB. Rachel listened without interrupting, then said, "Send me everything. I'll dig into it." And Clara? "Don't do anything stupid until I get there." Rachel promised to drive down that evening, but Clara couldn't shake the feeling that time was slipping away. She headed to the florist shop, needing the comfort of routine. The bell above the door jingled as she entered, the scent of lavender grounding her. But as she sorted through orders, she noticed something off. A delivery slip for a funeral she didn't recognize, addressed to an empty lot on the edge of town. The handwriting was unfamiliar, and the payment was cash, untraceable. Clara's skin prickled. Was this a mistake or a message? She drove to the address, a desolate patch of land surrounded by pines. No gravestones, no mourners, just a single bouquet of white roses, identical to the one she placed on Emily's casket. Her heart raced. Someone was watching her, taunting her. She snapped a photo of the roses and sent it to Rachel, who texted back, "Get out of there. Now." Back at the shop, Clara locked the doors and pulled the shades. She opened the USB again, this time digging into the files. There were spreadsheets, emails, and audio recordings, evidence of a pharmaceutical company, Vitanova, falsifying drug trials. The drug, meant to treat chronic pain, had caused heart failure in dozens of patients. Emily's client, the whistleblower, had been silenced, and Emily had kept digging, even after the case closed. Clara's hands clenched. Emily had died of heart failure. Was it really just cancer or something more sinister? The bell jingled, startling her. She froze, realizing she'd forgotten to lock the back door. Footsteps echoed in the storeroom, slow and deliberate. Clara grabbed a pair of pruning shears, her pulse pounding in her ears. "Who's there?" she called, her voice sharper than she intended. A man stepped into the light, the gray-suited stranger. Up close, he was younger than she'd thought, maybe early 40s, with cold blue eyes and a scar above his brow. "Clara," he said, his voice calm like they were old friends. "You have something that doesn't belong to you." Her grip tightened on the shears. "I don't know what you're talking about." He smiled, a predator's smile. Emily was stubborn too. "Let's make this easy. Hand it over and no one gets hurt." Clara's mind raced. He knew her name, knew about Emily. He was Vitanova's enforcer, sent to clean up loose ends. She backed toward the counter, her eyes darting to the phone. If she could stall him, Rachel might get here in time. "You're too late," she lied. "I gave it to the police." His smile faded. "Don't play games, Florist. I've been watching you. You haven't gone to anyone." He stepped closer and Clara's heart thudded. She was alone, cornered, with nothing but a pair of shears and Emily's truth to protect. Then the back door slammed open. Rachel stormed in, her leather jacket dripping with rain, a pistol in her hand. "Back off," she barked, her voice steady. The man froze, his eyes narrowing. For a moment no one moved. Then he raised his hands, backing toward the door. "This isn't over," he said, and slipped into the night. Rachel lowered the gun, her face grim. "You okay?" she asked. Clara nodded, her legs shaking. Rachel glanced at the USB on the counter. "That's what they're after, isn't it?" Clara swallowed. "It's Emily's legacy. Proof a company killed people and covered it up. She died for this." Rachel's jaw tightened. "Then we're not letting them win. Pack a bag. You're coming with me to Seattle. We'll figure out who this guy is and what he wants." Clara hesitated, looking around the shop. It was all she had left of Emily. Their life, their love. But Emily's fight was hers now. She grabbed the USB, the journal, and a single white rose from the counter. "Let's go," she said, her voice steady for the first time that day. As they drove into the night, Clara felt the weight of Emily's secret settling into her bones. She wasn't just the florist anymore. She was the keeper of a truth that could change everything, if she could survive long enough to share it. The Seattle skyline glittered through Rachel's apartment window, but Clara felt no comfort in its glow. She sat on a worn couch, the USB and journal beside her, Emily's white rose wilting in a glass of water. Rachel paced, her phone pressed to her ear, barking questions to a contact at the Portland PD. "Yeah, I need a name on a guy, early 40s, scar above his brow. He's not just a thug, he's connected." Clara's mind was elsewhere, replaying Emily's video, her warning. They'll come for this. The man in the gray suit had found her too easily. Vitanova, the pharmaceutical giant, had resources, money, power, people who could make problems disappear. Clara wasn't just grieving now, she was scared. But fear was a spark, igniting a resolve she hadn't known she had. Emily had fought for justice. Clara would too. Rachel hung up, her face grim. "My guy at the precinct says your stalker's name is Vincent Cole. Ex-private security, now a fixer for big corporations. He's been linked to Vitanova before, but nothing sticks. He's a ghost." She sat across from Clara, her brown eyes softening. "You sure you want to do this? Once we dig deeper, there's no going back." Clara's fingers brushed the journal. Emily didn't back down. Neither will I. She opened the journal, showing Rachel the entries about Vitanova's drug, Nexapra. The evidence was damning, internal memos admitting the drug's risks, silenced whistleblowers, even hints of bribes to regulators. Emily had been meticulous, but one name kept appearing. Dr. Alan Kessler, Vitanova's head of research. He'd overseen the trials and, according to Emily, knew everything. Rachel leaned forward. "Kessler's still with Vitanova, based in Seattle. If we can get to him, we might find out how far this goes. But Clara, if Vincent's involved, Kessler's untouchable. We need a plan." Clara nodded, her mind racing. She wasn't a lawyer or an investigator, just a florist who loved a woman the world didn't see. But she had Emily's courage, and that was enough. "What if we don't go to him?" she said. "What if we make him come to us?" Rachel raised an eyebrow. "You're thinking bait. Risky, but it could work. We leak that you have the evidence, force their hand. But we need somewhere public, somewhere they can't touch you without witnesses." They settled on a plan. A memorial event for Emily, hosted at a community center in Portland. Clara would announce it through Sophie, framing it as a celebration of Emily's life. If Vincent or Kessler took the bait, Rachel would be ready, her contacts on standby to record everything. It was dangerous, but Clara felt alive, like she was finally fighting for Emily the way Emily had fought for others. Back in Portland, Clara worked with Sophie to organize the memorial. Sophie was hesitant, sensing Clara's tension, but didn't press. "Aunt Emily would have loved this," she said, arranging photos of Emily on a display board. One showed Emily and Clara at a pride event, their faces painted with rainbows, laughing under a summer sky. Clara's throat tightened. She wanted to tell Sophie everything. Their marriage, the secret, the danger, but she held back. Sophie had already lost enough. The night of the memorial, the community center buzzed with people. Emily's co-workers, friends, a few distant relatives. Clara wore a simple black dress, the USB hidden in a locket around her neck. Rachel blended into the crowd, her eyes scanning for Vincent. Clara took the podium, her voice steady despite the knot in her chest. Emily was more than a lawyer, she said, her words carrying the weight of their hidden love. She was a fighter, a light, a woman who never gave up on what was right. The room applauded, but Clara's eyes caught a flicker of movement at the back. Vincent. He stood by the door, his gray suit crisp, his gaze locked on her. Her heart pounded, but she kept speaking, her words a tribute to Emily's courage. When she stepped down, Sophie hugged her, whispering, "You're brave." She'd be proud. As the crowd mingled, Clara felt Vincent's presence like a storm cloud. Rachel signaled her from across the room, mouthing, "He's not alone." Clara's stomach dropped. Another man, older with gray hair and a sharp suit, stood near Vincent. Dr. Kessler. They'd taken the bait, but now Clara was in deeper than she'd planned. Rachel pulled her aside. "We've got eyes on them. My contact's recording everything. But we need to get you out of here. If Kessler's here, they're not playing games." Clara shook her head. "I'm not running." Emily didn't. She slipped the USB from her locket, handing it to Rachel. "If something happens to me, get this to the press. Promise me." Rachel's jaw tightened, but she nodded. "Stay close. We're ending this tonight." As the memorial wound down, Clara stepped outside, knowing Vincent would follow. The cool night air hit her face, and she heard footsteps behind her. She turned, facing him. "What do you want?" she demanded, her voice cutting through the silence. Vincent smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. "You know what? Hand it over, and you can go back to your flowers." Clara's hand closed around the locket, now empty. "You'll have to kill me first," she said, her voice steady. She wasn't just the florist anymore. She was Emily's wife, and she'd fight for her until the end. The Portland night was sharp with cold, the community center's lights casting long shadows across the parking lot. Clara stood her ground, her eyes locked on Vincent's, the empty locket clutched in her fist. She was gambling everything on Rachel's plan, on the hope that truth could outrun fear. Vincent stepped closer, his scar glinting under the streetlight. "You're making this harder than it needs to be," he said, his voice low, almost regretful. "Emily tried to play hero too. Look where it got her." Clara's blood ran cold. Was he implying Vitanova had a hand in Emily's death? Her grief twisted into rage, but she held it in check. "You don't scare me," she lied, her voice steady. "I know what you did. The world will too." His eyes narrowed, and for a moment she thought he'd lunge. But then Dr. Kessler emerged from the shadows, his polished demeanor a stark contrast to Vincent's menace. "Miss Harper," Kessler said, his tone smooth like a doctor delivering bad news. "You're out of your depth. Give us the drive and we'll leave you in peace." Clara's heart raced. Kessler's presence confirmed everything. Vitanova was desperate to bury Emily's evidence. She took a step back, her hand brushing the rose in her pocket, a reminder of Emily's love. "Peace," she said, her voice trembling with defiance. "You took her from me. There's no peace in that." Before Kessler could respond, Rachel's voice cut through the night. "Back off, both of you." She stepped into the light, her pistol trained on Vincent, her phone in her other hand recording. "Smile, boys. You're on camera." Vincent tensed, but Kessler raised a hand, calm as ever. "No need for theatrics, Miss Torres. We're just talking." He turned to Clara, his smile thin. "You think you're protecting Emily's legacy, but you're only putting yourself in danger. Let it go." Clara's resolve hardened. "Never." She glanced at Rachel, who gave a subtle nod. The plan was working, Kessler and Vincent were exposed, their words recorded. But Clara knew it wasn't enough. They needed the evidence in the open, untouchable by Vitanova's reach. Rachel's contact, a journalist named Maya, was waiting nearby, ready to upload the USB's contents to a secure server. Clara just had to keep them talking. "Why Emily?" she demanded, her voice breaking. She was sick. She wasn't a threat anymore. Why come after her? Kessler's smile faltered just for a second. She was persistent. Even at the end, she wouldn't let go of that case. We couldn't take the risk. Clara's chest tightened. It wasn't just cancer. They'd done something to her. Accelerated her illness, silenced her before she could speak. The realization hit like a tidal wave, but she channeled it into strength. "You're too late," she said. "The evidence is already out. You can't stop it now." Vincent lunged, but Rachel was faster, stepping between them. "Try it," she growled, her gun steady. Vincent froze, his eyes darting to Kessler, who shook his head. "Let's go," Kessler said, his voice tight. "She's bluffing." But as they retreated, Clara saw the doubt in his eyes. They weren't sure if she was telling the truth. As their car sped off, Rachel lowered her gun, her face pale. "You okay?" she asked. Clara nodded, though her legs felt like they might give out. "Maya's got the drive," Rachel said. "It's uploading now. By morning, Vitanova's dirty laundry will be all over the internet." Clara exhaled, relief mixing with dread. She'd done it, for Emily, for justice, but the cost was still sinking in. She wasn't safe yet, and neither was anyone who helped her. "What now?" she asked. Rachel grinned, though it didn't reach her eyes. "We disappear for a while. My place in Seattle off the grid. You in?" Clara nodded, clutching the rose. She wasn't running from her life. She was protecting it for Emily. They drove through the night, the city lights fading behind them. At Rachel's apartment, Maya met them, her laptop open. "It's done," she said. "The files are live. Whistleblower sites, social media, even a few news outlets. Vitanova can't bury this." Clara opened the journal, reading Emily's final words again. "You're my home." She felt Emily's presence, urging her forward. But as she scrolled through the online posts, her heart sank. Comments were flooding in, some praising the leak, others calling it a hoax. Vitanova was already spinning a counter-narrative, claiming the evidence was fabricated. Clara's hope wavered. Had Emily's sacrifice been for nothing? Then Sophie called. "Clara, it's everywhere," she said, her voice shaking. "People are talking. They're angry. Aunt Emily would be so proud of you." Clara's eyes filled with tears. Sophie's words were a lifeline, a reminder that the truth was out, even if the fight wasn't over. Rachel put a hand on her shoulder. "This is just the beginning. Vitanova's going down, but they'll fight dirty. We need to be ready." Clara nodded, her resolve steeling. She wasn't just the florist, not anymore. She was Emily's wife, her partner in a fight bigger than either of them. The rose in her hand was wilting, but its meaning wasn't. She'd carry Emily's love and her fight until the end. The Seattle safe house was a cramped loft above a bookstore, its walls lined with mismatched shelves and the faint smell of old paper. Clara sat by a narrow window, watching rain streak the glass, the journal open in her lap. Emily's words were her anchor, but the world outside was unraveling. Vitanova's stock was plummeting, lawsuits were piling up, and Kessler's name was all over the news. But Clara felt no victory, only the weight of what came next. Rachel and Maya worked around the clock, coordinating with whistleblower networks to keep the evidence alive. Clara helped where she could, transcribing Emily's journal for Maya's contacts, each entry a knife to her heart. Emily had written about their love in the margins, small notes like, "Clara's smile is my sunrise." Clara traced the words, her tears smudging the ink. She wasn't just fighting for justice. She was fighting to keep Emily's memory alive. But Vitanova wasn't done. Rachel's contacts reported increased chatter. Private security firms, hired hackers, even whispers of a mole in the whistleblower network. Vincent was still out there, and Clara felt his shadow everywhere. At night, she dreamed of him, his cold eyes promising retribution. She woke gasping, clutching the locket, now empty but still a piece of Emily. One morning Maya burst in, her face pale. "They're hitting back," she said, shoving her laptop toward Clara. A new article claimed Emily had been unstable, her evidence forged by a grieving lover, Clara. The smear campaign was brutal, painting her as a delusional florist obsessed with a dead woman. Clara's stomach churned. They were trying to erase her, just as they'd erased Emily. "We need to go public," Clara said, her voice steady despite the fear. "Not just the evidence, our story. Emily and me. They can't discredit the truth if we own it." Rachel hesitated. "That's a big move, Clara. You'd be outing your relationship to the world." Emily's family, the media. They'll tear into you. Clara's jaw tightened. I've been invisible for 12 years. I'm done hiding. She thought of Emily's letter. Our love doesn't need their validation. But maybe, just maybe, sharing their love could give her fight the power it needed. They planned a press conference, small but strategic, with Maya's journalist contacts. Clara would speak, tell the world about her life with Emily, about the woman who'd fought for justice and loved her fiercely. Sophie agreed to join, her presence a quiet endorsement of Clara's truth. Rachel arranged security, her contacts watching for Vincent or anyone else Vitanova might send. The day of the press conference, Clara stood in a community hall, her hands trembling as she faced a dozen reporters. Sophie stood beside her, her gray eyes steady, a photo of Emily between them. Clara took a breath, her voice carrying the weight of 12 years. I'm Clara Harper, she began. For 12 years I was Emily's wife. Not in name, not on paper, but in every way that matters. She wasn't just a lawyer or a whistleblower. She was my home, my heart, and she died trying to expose Vitanova's lies. The room was silent, cameras flashing. Clara told their story, the secret vows, the quiet nights, the love that had sustained them through Emily's illness. She spoke of the USB, the journal, the truth Vitanova wanted buried. They thought I was just the florist at her funeral, she said, her voice breaking. But I was her wife, and I'll fight for her until my last breath. Sophie squeezed her hand, tears in her eyes. The reporters erupted with questions, but Clara felt a strange calm. She'd done it. She'd claimed their love, their life, for the world to see. Maya whispered, "It's trending. People are listening." But as they left the hall, Rachel's phone buzzed. Her face darkened. "Vincent's been spotted nearby," she said. "We need to move." They piled into Rachel's car, speeding toward the safe house. Clara's heart raced, but she felt lighter, unburdened. The world knew her truth now. Emily's truth. Even if Vincent came for her, she'd won something he couldn't take. At the safe house, Rachel barricaded the door, her gun ready. Maya monitored the news, reports of Vitanova's executives resigning under pressure. But Clara's eyes were on the journal, on Emily's final note. "Be careful, my love. But don't stop fighting." She wouldn't. Not now, not ever. As midnight approached, a knock rattled the door. Rachel tensed, signaling Clara to stay back. "Who's there?" she called. A voice answered, soft but firm. "It's Sophie. I have something you need to see." Clara's heart leaped. She trusted Sophie, but after everything, doubt lingered. Rachel opened the door, gun lowered but ready. Sophie stepped in, her face pale, holding a small envelope. "I found this in Aunt Emily's things," she said. "It's addressed to you, Clara. I think it's what she wanted you to have all along." Clara opened it, her hands shaking. Inside was a single sheet, Emily's handwriting clear. "You're stronger than you know. Finish this. For us." With it was a key, small and silver, no label. Clara's breath caught. Another secret. Another piece of Emily's fight. The key gleamed in Clara's palm, small but heavy with possibility. Sophie's eyes were wide, her voice trembling as she explained finding it in Emily's old desk, tucked inside a book of poetry they'd both loved. "I didn't know what it meant," Sophie said, "but I knew it was for you." Clara's mind raced. Emily's secrets kept unfolding, each one a thread in a tapestry she was only beginning to understand. Rachel examined the key, her brow furrowed. No markings. Could be a safe deposit box, a storage unit, anything. "We need to figure this out fast. Vincent's still out there." Clara nodded, her resolve unshaken. The press conference had lit a fire, with news outlets amplifying Emily's evidence and their love story. Vitanova was crumbling, but Clara knew they'd strike back. The key was her last link to Emily's fight, and she wouldn't let it slip away. Rachel's contacts traced the key to a bank in Portland, a small branch Emily had used years ago. Clara, Rachel, and Sophie drove through the night, the city a blur of lights and rain. At the bank, Clara presented the key, her heart pounding as the clerk led them to a safe deposit box. Inside was a single folder, thick with documents, and a letter in Emily's handwriting. "My love, this is the last piece. It's enough to end them. Be brave." The folder contained signed affidavits from Vitanova insiders, test results never made public, and a list of names, executives, regulators, even a politician, who'd profited from Nexipra's cover-up. Clara's hands trembled as she read. Emily had built a case that could topple an empire. But why hide it? Why not tell her? Rachel's voice broke her thoughts. This is dynamite, Clara. We get this to the right people, Vitanova's done. But we need to move now. They returned to the safe house, Maya already waiting with her laptop. As she uploaded the new documents, Clara felt a shift. This wasn't just about Emily anymore. It was about every person Vitanova had harmed, every life they'd stolen. She thought of Emily's final days, her frail hand squeezing Clara's, whispering, "You're my home." Clara would make sure that home stood for something. But Vincent wasn't finished. As Maya hit send, the safe house door rattled, a heavy thud echoing through the loft. Rachel grabbed her gun, motioning for silence. Sophie clutched Clara's arm, her eyes wide with fear. Clara's heart raced, but she felt Emily's strength in her veins. She wasn't running anymore. Rachel peered through the peephole, her face grim. It's him. And he's not alone. Clara glimpsed two figures outside, Vincent and another man, both armed. The safe house was compromised. Maya whispered, "The files are live. They can't stop it now." But Clara knew Vincent wasn't here for the files. He was here for her. Rachel turned to Clara. "You and Sophie get to the back exit. I'll hold them off." Clara hesitated, but Rachel's glare was fierce. "Go." For Emily. Clara grabbed Sophie's hand, the folder tucked under her arm, and they slipped through the bookstore's back door. The alley was dark, rain soaking them as they ran. Behind them, gunshots rang out and Clara's heart lurched. Rachel was risking everything. She couldn't lose anyone else. They reached Rachel's car, Sophie trembling as she climbed in. Clara started the engine, her mind racing. She drove to a nearby diner, a public place where Vincent couldn't touch them. Inside, she called Maya, who confirmed the files were spreading. News outlets, regulators, even the FBI were picking it up. Vitanova's empire was collapsing. Hours later, Rachel called. "I'm okay," she said, her voice strained. "Vincent got away, but his buddy's in custody. You're safe for now." Clara exhaled, relief flooding her. She looked at Sophie, who was sipping coffee, her face pale but resolute. "You did it," Sophie said. "Aunt Emily's smiling somewhere." Clara smiled, tears falling. She saw Emily in Sophie's eyes in the fight they'd won. The next day, Clara returned to Portland, to the florist shop that had been her refuge. She placed a fresh white rose on the counter, next to their photo. The world knew their love now, and Emily's truth had torn down a giant. Months later, Vitanova's executives faced trials, Kessler among them. Clara testified, her voice steady as she told the world about Emily's courage, their love, and the lives they'd saved. She wasn't just the florist anymore. She was Emily's wife, her partner in a legacy of justice. At the cemetery, Clara knelt by Emily's grave, the rose in her hand. "We did it," she whispered. "You're free now. And so am I." The wind carried her words, and for the first time Clara felt peace. Their love had been a secret, but their fight was a beacon, lighting the way for others. She stood, ready to live, to love, to carry Emily's heart forever.